There is a pervasive idea amongst gardeners that the only way to create good compost quickly is through a process known as hot composting. This method is often presented as the gold standard, a vigorous, almost alchemical process that demands precision and effort. It requires a specific balance of green and brown materials, regular turning with a garden fork to introduce oxygen, and careful monitoring of temperature. The promise is a fast turnaround, producing usable compost in a matter of weeks or a few months. It is, without a doubt, a highly effective technique for those with the time, energy, and inclination to pursue it with such dedication. However, let's be honest with ourselves. This demanding routine is simply not practical for many of us. Life is busy, and our gardening time is precious, often reserved for the simple joys of planting, pruning, and just being in our green spaces. The thought of wrestling with a steaming, heavy compost heap every weekend can feel more like a chore than a pleasure. It is this very perception of composting as hard labor that can put people off starting in the first place. They see it as an all-or-nothing endeavor, believing that if they cannot commit to the rigors of a hot heap, then there is no point at all. This is where the narrative needs to shift. The relentless focus on speed overlooks the true prize of the composting process, the creation of humus. Humus is not just broken down plant matter, it is the final, stable, and incredibly rich dark substance that forms the very foundation of healthy soil. Hot composting certainly gets you to a usable, half-finished compost quickly, but the journey to true stable humus is always a slower, more measured affair. The high-octane, fast-track approach is not a prerequisite for creating this magical material that will transform your garden's soil structure and fertility for years to come. So, I want to invite you to reconsider your approach. I want you to embrace a gentler, more patient method that works in harmony with nature's own unhurried pace. This method is cold composting. It is a wonderfully forgiving and low-effort alternative that requires very little from you but rewards you with the finest quality humus imaginable. It is the secret of the so-called lazy gardener, who, in reality, is simply a clever gardener working smarter, not harder. Let go of the pressure to be fast, and instead focus on the goal of creating something truly wonderful for your soil. One of the most significant misconceptions surrounding cold composting is that it is simply too slow to be worthwhile. We live in a world that values instant gratification, and the idea of waiting a year or more for compost can seem terribly inefficient. Gardeners often worry that a cold pile will just sit there, a stagnant monument to garden waste, never transforming into anything useful. This fear is rooted in a misunderstanding of what we are trying to achieve. We are not just rotting down garden debris, we are cultivating an entire ecosystem of microorganisms whose job it is to create humus, and this delicate process cannot be rushed. Humus is the dark, crumbly, and sweet-smelling organic matter that remains after everything has fully decomposed. It is the lifeblood of fertile soil, a complex substance rich in nutrients and capable of holding vast amounts of water. Unlike the fibrous, still decomposing material you might get from a quick hot compost, stable humus is the finished article. It improves soil aeration, drainage, and its ability to retain nutrients, making them available to your plants exactly when they need them. The creation of this complex structure is a slow biological process, orchestrated by fungi and bacteria over a considerable period. Therefore, the perceived slowness of cold composting is not a flaw, it is its greatest strength. By allowing the materials to break down naturally, and without interference, you are giving nature the time it needs to perform its best work. A hot heap speeds up the initial decay, but the final, crucial stage of humification, the conversion of organic matter into stable humus, happens at its own pace regardless of the method. In a cold pile, the entire process unfolds as one gentle, continuous journey, allowing for a more thorough and complete transformation into that coveted black gold. Think of it less as a race and more as a slow maturation, like aging a fine wine or a good cheese. The quality of the final product is directly related to the time and care invested in its creation, even if that care is simply leaving it well alone. The cold composting method acknowledges that the intricate web of life within the pile, the worms, the beetles, the fungi, and the countless microscopic organisms, are the true workers. Our role is simply to provide them with the right ingredients and then step back, allowing them to perform their quiet, essential magic over time. At its core, my method for cold composting is one of benign neglect. a shortcut that relies on simplicity and patience over vigorous intervention. It is built on the principle of layering, creating a sort of garden lasagna that you build up over time and then leave to its own devices. There is no turning, no strenuous forking, and no obsessive temperature checks. You simply add materials as they become available from your garden and your kitchen. It is the easiest and most forgiving way to make compost, perfect for anyone who wants fantastic results, without the back-breaking work often associated with the process. The fundamental rule is the same as any composting. You need a mix of browns and greens. Browns are the carbon-rich materials, the dry woody stuff like fallen leaves, shredded cardboard, straw, and small twigs. Greens are the nitrogen-rich materials, which are typically soft and full of moisture, such as grass clippings, vegetable peelings, coffee grounds, and young weed growth. A hot heap requires a fairly precise ratio, but with a cold pile, you can be much more relaxed. Aim for roughly twice as much brown material as green, but do not get bogged down in measuring it perfectly. A rough approximation is all you need. The process is wonderfully straightforward. You start your pile, and as you generate waste, you add it in layers. After you have added a layer of green kitchen scraps or fresh grass clippings, you simply cover it with a layer of brown materials. This simple act of covering the greens prevents the pile from becoming slimy and smelly, it deters flies, and it provides the carbon that the microorganisms need to balance the nitrogen from the greens. You continue this layering process until your bin or heap is full, and then you simply leave it alone to mature. That is truly all there is to it. Once the bin is full, you can either start a second one or simply begin a new pile next to the old one. The first pile is now left to quietly get on with the business of decomposing. You do not need to turn it or interfere with it in any way. The worms and other beneficial creatures that have made it their home will do all the necessary mixing and aerating for you. This minimal intervention approach is what makes cold composting such a liberating and sustainable practice for the busy gardener. Section 4. Practical layers for perfect humus. So, to get the best results from your cold compost pile, it really helps to understand that variety is the spice of life, and of compost. A wide range of different materials will introduce a more diverse community of microorganisms, which in turn will accelerate the creation of rich, complex humus. You see, a pile made solely of grass clippings and cardboard will eventually break down, but one that includes autumn leaves, hedge trimmings, vegetable peelings, used tea bags, and even the contents of your vacuum cleaner bag will foster a much more dynamic and efficient ecosystem. Every different material brings its own unique set of nutrients and microbes to the party. Let's walk through the practical steps of layering. Begin your new pile on bare earth if you can, as this allows worms and other helpful organisms to move in from the soil below. Start with a thick, bulky layer of browns at the bottom, something like small branches or crumpled cardboard. This helps to ensure good air circulation from the outset. On top of this, add your first layer of greens, perhaps the contents of your kitchen caddy. Then, cover this completely with a layer of browns, such as dry leaves or torn-up newspaper. Continue this pattern every time you add to the heap. There are a few simple tricks you can use to give your cold compost pile a bit of a kickstart without resorting to turning it. One of the best things you can add is a spadeful of finished compost from an old pile or some rich garden soil. This acts as an inoculant, introducing a ready-made population of the bacteria and fungi needed for decomposition. Another excellent activator is a layer of well-rotted manure from herbivores like cows or horses. This adds a powerful boost of nitrogen and its own unique set of beneficial microbes, which will help to get things moving. Remember to keep your layers relatively thin. A huge, thick layer of grass clippings, for instance, can compact into a slimy anaerobic mat that will slow everything down. By alternating thin layers of greens with slightly thicker layers of browns, you maintain a good structure that allows air and moisture to penetrate the pile. If the pile ever looks too dry, especially during a long, hot spell, you can give it a light watering with a watering can. It should feel damp like a wrung-out sponge, but never waterlogged or soaking wet. Section 5. A resilient and rewarding pile. One of the most liberating aspects of cold composting is just how resilient and self-managing the piles are. Once you have filled your bin and left it to its own devices, it becomes a slow-burning engine of decomposition that requires almost no further input from you. This hands-off approach fosters a stable environment where a complex food web can establish itself. Earthworms, millipedes, woodlice, and a host of microscopic organisms will colonize the heap, diligently tunneling, digesting, and transforming the waste into humus. Their constant movement naturally aerates the pile, making the strenuous work of turning entirely redundant. A common concern with cold composting is its ability to handle weed seeds and plant pathogens. While it is true that a cold pile does not reach the high temperatures needed to kill all seeds and diseases instantly, the long, slow decomposition process is remarkably effective in its own right. Over the course of a year or more, most weed seeds will either rot away or be consumed by the creatures living in the pile. Similarly, many common plant pathogens are outcompeted and broken down by the beneficial fungi and bacteria that dominate the cool, stable environment of a mature compost heap. For this reason, it is still wise to be a little selective about what you add. I would advise against adding the roots of pernicious perennial weeds like bindweed or ground elder, as they can be notoriously resilient. Similarly, avoid adding diseased plant material such as roses with black spot or blighted potato foliage, just to be on the safe side. However, for the vast majority of annual weeds and general garden trimmings, a cold compost pile provides a perfect low-effort recycling solution that will neutralize most potential problems over its long maturation period. The beauty of this system is its forgiving nature. If your ratio of browns to greens is not quite right, the process may slow down, but it will not fail. If the pile gets a little too wet, the worms will simply move to a drier section. If it gets too dry, they will burrow deeper to find moisture. The ecosystem within the pile is self-regulating. Your job is simply to provide the raw ingredients, and then let this quiet, natural process unfold. It is a testament to nature's ability to create fertility and balance with quiet efficiency and without any human intervention. Section 6. Harvesting your black gold. After a period of patient waiting, typically around a year to 18 months, you will be rewarded with the most wonderful, dark, and crumbly humus at the bottom of your pile. This is the moment you have been waiting for. You do not need to wait for the entire pile to be finished. The beauty of a static cold heap is that you can harvest from the bottom while the top is still decomposing. Many compost bins have a handy hatch at the base for this very purpose. Simply open it up and scoop out the finished material, which will be dark brown or black, smell earthy like a forest floor, and have a fine, friable texture. This finished humus is incredibly versatile and can be used to enrich every corner of your garden. One of its best uses is as a soil improver. When preparing new beds for vegetables or annuals, spread a generous layer, 2 or 3 inches deep, over the surface and gently fork it into the top few inches of soil. This will instantly improve the soil's structure, helping heavy clay soils to drain better and enabling sandy soils to retain more moisture and nutrients. Your plants will have access to a slow-release source of food, and their roots will thrive in the improved conditions. For container gardening, finished humus is an invaluable ingredient for your potting mixes. I like to mix my own, typically using 1 part humus, 1 part loam or good quality topsoil, and 1 part sharp sand or perlite for drainage. This creates a rich, moisture-retentive, and well-draining medium that will sustain your container plants throughout the season, reducing the need for constant feeding with liquid fertilizers. The humus provides a fantastic buffer, holding on to water and nutrients and releasing them as the plants require them. It is also perfect for top-dressing your existing perennials, shrubs, and fruit trees. In the autumn or spring, simply spread a 1-inch layer of humus around the base of your established plants, keeping it clear of the main stem or trunk. This mulch will suppress weeds, insulate the roots from temperature extremes, and as the worms and rain work it into the soil, slowly feed the plant over many months. It is a simple, gentle way to replenish the soil's fertility and give your permanent plantings a new lease of life, ensuring their health and vigor for the year ahead. Section 7. An invitation to patience. I hope I have shown you that creating the most wonderful soil-enriching humus need not be a laborious or complicated task. The path of cold composting is a gentle one, a partnership with the natural world that values patience over frantic activity. It asks very little of you but gives back so much in return. It is a method that fits seamlessly into the rhythm of a busy life, allowing you to recycle your garden and kitchen waste into something truly transformative for your garden soil, without the pressure of constant maintenance and turning. So, I encourage you to begin. Start small if you wish, with a simple bin or even just a quiet corner of your garden where you can begin to build your pile. Embrace the simple act of layering your greens and browns and find satisfaction in knowing that with each bucket of peelings and each barrow of leaves, you are contributing to a slow, magical process. Do not worry about getting it perfect. This method is incredibly forgiving. The most important step is simply to start and to trust that nature will do the rest of the work for you. Forget the myth that you need to toil and sweat over a hot, steaming heap to be a proper composter. The real goal is not speed, but the creation of stable, long-lasting humus that will build the health of your soil for years to come. Cold composting delivers this in spades, producing a final product of unparalleled quality. It is a sustainable practice that closes the loop in your garden, turning waste into wealth and improving your little patch of the planet with every passing season. Give it a try. Let go of the need for speed and embrace the quiet satisfaction of a slow, steady transformation. In a year or so, when you dig into the base of that pile and pull out a handful of dark, sweet-smelling, crumbly humus, you will understand the true power of this wonderfully lazy and effective technique. You will have created the very best food for your soil, and your garden will thank you for it with abundant health and vitality. Happy composting.